Whoever invented the sewing machine was a genius. We know that when you sew by hand, you have to go through the top and pull it out the other side. But what we see in the sewing machine is that it just passes through one side of the cloth and pulls it back out. So how do these threads stay on the cloth? And it's very fast. We all know that every needle has an eye, and that's been true since the beginning of time. Until 1755, a man named Charles probably thought it was too cumbersome to sew, so he created a needle with a point at both ends, and the eye was moved to the bottom, so you don't have to turn the needle over and over again. Surprisingly, this needle is still used in sewing machines today, but there was still a problem. Even though the eye end of the needle can pass through the fabric, but when we pull the needle out, the thread also comes out. It's not hard to solve this problem. All we need to do is to leave a loop underneath the needle as it passes through the fabric. And when the needle comes down the next time, it goes through the loop at the same time. This creates a chain of stitches. This technique is called chain stitch. It's one of the first types of sewing machines. But how do you keep the loop underneath the machine? In 1857, there were two almost simultaneous solutions to this problem. One was to add a hook underneath the machine. As the needle penetrates the sewing fabric and carries the thread down, then as the needle rises, the thread between the eye of the needle and the sewing fabric is removed. Then as the needle rises, the thread between the eye of the needle and the sewing fabric becomes shorter and forms a small raised bundle. At that exact moment, the sharp hook catches the raised bundle of thread and pulls it into a loop. And as the needle comes down, the hook moves back, and the needle goes through the loop. And then as it moves up, the bundle bends again. The process repeats itself. The other design is much the same. Only the hook is designed to rotate. This hook was used in over 80 models of sewing machines. But there was another problem. The problem was that if one of the hooks became loose, the whole seam would fall off easily. To solve this problem, an extra thread was added under the sewing machine. This thread is connected to a bobbin needle when the needle goes through the fabric. The bobbin also passes through the blue loop and crosses the two threads together. When the needle returns, it creates a lock stitch. This solves the problem of unraveling the thread. The bobbin is then modified into a bobbin. By rotating the bobbin, a lock stitch is formed. From this point on, the sewing machine sewing method was basically fully developed. But there was still one problem to be solved. How could the fabric move on its own? In the early days of the sewing machine, the fabric had to be moved manually after each sewing. In addition to the lack of efficiency, the stitch spacing was not always the same. For this reason, a presser corner was added to the sewing machine to hold the fabric in place. Underneath the fabric is a metal plate that looks like a scrubber. When the needle is withdrawn, it moves back a little. This friction pushes the fabric into position for the next stitch. The fabric would move on its own as it was sewn. This design is still used on every sewing machine today.